Alrighty, now we're going to jump into the skirt block. Starting on page 54, we're going to use the same measurement chart from page 40. We're going to go ahead and start drawing our rectangle of A to B and A to D. A to B, we're just going to make the skirt 25 inches long, and the width, we're skipping a step here to do A to D, which is the back hip arc plus half an inch. So that is line 23 for the back. That's 9 1/8 plus a half inch. So that is 9 5/8, which makes this 9.675. All right, I'm always realigning these. This is actually the back, so we're going to move it over here. And we're going to draw in our letters A, D, B, F. Now A to C, we're going to draw in with just our add point, is the center front hip depth, which is letter 25. For the front, it is 7.5. So we're going to right click, 7.5. Then we are going to draw a line to square that out. E to G is going to be from over here, E, and we're going to draw G, so I'm going to write that in preemptively. E to G is the center back hip depth, which is letter 25. Center back hip depth is 7 3/8 plus, no, 7 3/8. So 7.325. I need to add a little point there so that I can get that measurement. 7.375. Oops, that's not right. 7.375. Okay, it's only like a 1/4 inch lower than that. Let me see, is that correct? E to G, center back hip depth, 25, center back, 7 3/8. Yeah. 3/8 is 375, right? I always am double guessing myself. Yes, okay. All right, so that's G. Now A to H is going to be another rectangle. I'm just going to draw a separate rectangle for this using the same length. A to H is the front hip arc, which is 23 plus half an inch. So 23 front hip is 8 5/8 plus half an inch. So that is 9 1/8 that we need to draw. 9.125 by 25 long. I'm just going to match it up here, and we're going to bring this over because this is center front. I'm going to copy over this line so that it is extended over to the front as well. All right. I'm also just going to mark that this is the back and this is the front. This is CF and this is CB. All right, moving on to figure 2. D to K, which is the variation in the width of the waist. We're going to add in some points. So D to K is the back waist arc, number 19, which is 6 1/8 plus a 1/4 inch plus 2 inches. So that's 8 1/8, 8 5, wait, 8 3/8. That is the number. 8.375. 8.375. Great. And D to L is our dart placement, which is 3 inches in. Then we're going to make another notch at 1 inch, and then in this instruction it says 1 1/4 inches, but in the illustration it says 1 1/2 inches. I'm going to go with 1 1/2 and see, because that's what's on the illustration. And then we're going to do one more 1 inch. And then we need to square up and down from K, which is this spot right here. That's A. And sometimes it does not want to draw past where your box is, so you can always just draw a line and move it later. Now for the front, we're going to do M to H, the same measurement. So that's the front waist arc plus 1/4 inch plus 1 inch. So 19, the front waist arc is 6.5. So we're going to do 7.5, 7 3/4, 7.75. We are going to square up and down. We'll mark this as M. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to mark our first notch 3 inches in. Perfect. Then we'll do 5/8, which is 0.675. Then 1.5, 1.5. Then another 0.675. And that is the placement for our darts. All right, so now we are going to draw in our side hip depth. Basically, we're going to measure from C up to match this line on K, and then from C up to match this line on M. Our hip depth side is 7 5/8. So that's 7.675. We're going to try to do this as manually as we can. 7.675. We need to have a curve here, so we're going to start at C, work our way up here. I'm just going to put in a little bit of a curve, and then we're going to adjust. I'm going to hit enter so that I don't lose my line. And we're trying to get to 7.675. I may have made it a bit high. Can readjust. This one might need to be quite close to the original number. 0.676. That is very close. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. 7.675. It does in the book show it wants to go up over this a little bit, so let me try readjusting. 7, a little bit too much. With a curved line, it's hard to get a really precise measurement like this without a French curve. So we're going to do this 7.675. Not perfect, but it is good for our purposes. We actually might need to just readjust this to be a bit more curvy in the hip than up here. So we'll adjust it as we need to. And now we need to draw in the waistline. We, again, don't have a French curve, and we're going to just draw what we think a French curve would kind of look like. I'm sorry, a hip curve, to try to get a nice little curve going here. Just a wee one in the front. I might look at these measurements again to see if I'm a bit off, because normally you would want it to be a little higher. For example, you would want this curve to look a little bit more like that. Where's my handle? Maybe I'll leave it like that. All right. So now we need to just do our darts. So locate the center of each dart and square down 5.5 inches. So in this, on this line, we're just going to use our point tool, X, to divide this in half. Do that for both. And then we're going to draw a line down that is 5.5 inches. Okay, we did that for the front, or for the back. And now you're going to draw in legs from just underneath this point on this line that we had drawn, down and back up. And again, you're going to draw on our curved line. Might be a little bit close, it might not want to actually do that. So you may have to draw it and then drag it over to adjust. If the point is really close. See, so right here, it didn't want to click up. So I'm just gonna boop. There we go, there's our back darts. Now we're gonna do the same thing on the front. Draw dart legs, Let's see, for the front, we are 3.5. So we're going to, once again, find the center of our darts. Draw down a line that is 3.5 inches. And we'll draw our darts in. That one didn't want to click up, so we'll just drag that after the fact. All right, now we need to true the dart legs by adding to the shorter leg and blending the curve of the waistline. We're going to do that after we take these off as separate pattern pieces, just so we don't, it'll add just like a little bit of extra complication for it right now. So let's get this back up. All right, so now we're going to trace off these pattern pieces like we did for the top. We're going to use our trace tool, and you're going to trace off all of these. My shift key doesn't always work on my home computer. It's very frustrating. All right, trace this pattern. It didn't capture this curve, so we're going to have to go back and edit that. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. We'll have to do a little bit of editing on these. Trace this pattern. All right. So once again, I'm going to drag this middle piece over here and archive it so that we can just work on our front and back pieces. You can leave on these alignment points if you want to, or you can delete them. I'm going to delete them for right now. This got quite convoluted and I'm not sure why. So I'm just going to hit my C key to adjust the curve and drag out my hip to where it was supposed to be. And then I can delete these little internal lines. And there are a ton of points here, which we don't need. So I'm going to convert to curve point. I'm going to delete these. And then these darts didn't copy over the right way. So what we're going to do is double click on them and just hit cut. And it will cut out those pattern pieces. Here is where we can true our darts. So this is 3.6 on one side and 3.59 on the other. So we can try to get it as close as we can. And then we can just readjust our curves. This is 3.559. This is 3.47. 5.9. You can put in, change the line length, but it's just such a small measurement that it seems silly to do that. All right, and we're going to do the same thing here. Double click those darts, hit cut to make them darts. Delete these extra lines. We're going to change all of these points to, oh, must have selected too many. Oh wow, I don't know where all these points came from. What is all of this stuff? You know what? I'm just going to delete all of the, nope, don't do that. I'm going to delete all of these except for that one, and I'm just going to redraw my curve and try to match that up again. So this is 7.783, this is 7.714, so I'm just going to try to bring this up to match that side. And then here we're just going to also true these darts. 5.572, this is 5.574. And this is 5.486, 5.488. Good enough. You can go in and adjust as you want. there is our skirt block. You can go through and test and make sure that it all sews up correctly. We're going to open up our 3D window and redo the same, where our front block we're going to put on the front, our back block we'll put on the back, and I'm just going to delete this one extra point here. For the front, we're going to click on center front and unfold with symmetric editing, and then for the back you do symmetric pattern with sewing. And now all the pieces should be in the right spot. We're going to use segment sewing to close up the darts. They might be off by like 0.002, but that's okay. We can always go back in and adjust later. And then for the side, we're actually going to use the free sewing tool. You're going to start at the top and your line is going to just follow this line, and you click to stitch your first line, do the same thing to match up. And when you hit simulate, ooh, it's a good idea to do a center back seam first. I did that on both the top and the back. There we go. We have our lovely skirt block. What I might do is join the two so that we can see where it's supposed to sit at the natural waist. So for that, we're going to use the MN segment sewing tool. So we're going to start with notches pointed towards the front for everything. Hit enter and go back through and click every piece of the waist and hit enter. Now we simulate and we have our fully finished bodice, top, and skirt. Once again, if you are printing this out and you want to include seam allowance, you're going to follow this. You're going to use this tool here called seam allowance. You'll drag and drop. You'll drag a marquee box over everything. It automatically will give you a 1 cm or 0.394 seam allowance for everything. If you want to change it, you can highlight everything and change it to whatever you want it to be, quarter, whatever. If you want the hem of the skirt to be like 1 inch, you can highlight just those 2 little pieces at the hem and change it to 1. Oh, that didn't work. I think my computer's getting tired. And that will just increase the hem on there. In future classes, I'll show you how to print out, but for now, that is our drafting. Good luck.